Donc notre prochain intervenant, donc c'est Samy qui est donc staff engineer chez Back Market, pardon, pas Black Market. J'ai tout donné ce matin, donc là ça y est, maintenant j'ai un peu plus de mal. Qui va nous parler de dev expérience. Et alors c'est un sujet qui est assez important à mon humble avis parce qu'on peut monter les meilleures plateformes du monde. Si jamais la dev expérience est pas bonne et si les développeurs et développeuses ont du mal à s'en servir, ça servira à rien. Et au début de Kubernetes, c'est un truc dont on entendait souvent parler. Hein, en parlant de Kubernetes, les gens disaient non, mais d'ailleurs, quand j'étais chez nous, souvent, on se disait à tort, hein, non mais Kubernetes, ça marchera jamais, c'est beaucoup trop compliqué ce truc. Bon, aujourd'hui, finalement, Kubernetes, ça marche pas trop mal, mais on est quand même passé du stade des early adopters qui étaient pas peur d'un truc compliqué. Maintenant, après, à un moment donné, on veut construire une plateforme pour des gens qui n'ont peut-être pas envie d'aller avaler 600 pages de YAML et d'apprendre par cœur comment monter et démonter son cluster les mains dans le dos. Donc voilà pourquoi l'expérience, c'est important. Samy, à toi.
Merci. Test. Hello. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm the one to break the run of French talks. I'm going to be doing mine in English. Let's see if I can get this. Actually, okay. So this talk is titled "A Case for a Developer Portal." My name is Samy. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this. So I'm a staff engineer at Back Market. I joined the company around 3 years ago, initially as a back-end engineer in one of our product engineering tribes, and later dabbled with a few platform projects on the side, later moved to the platform tribe as a staff engineer. A little bit about me. Probably like many of you here, I'm very passionate about computer systems, and in my spare time, I like to watch sports, play video games, and listen to heavy metal. So today on the agenda, we'll start off with some context on Back Market, who we are, what we do, what brought us to this talk. And then we'll move to why a developer portal. So what was the motivation, the problems we were facing in the organization that brought us to this solution. Then we'll expand on the features of DevPortal that we implemented internally. So we call our developer portal DevPortal. It's not very creative, but it's direct and straight to the point. And finally, we'll wrap up with the challenges that we faced and the lessons we learned along the way. So Back Market, we're a marketplace selling refurbished tech products, smartphones, fridges, scooters, laptops. We're creating a circular economy via our buyback feature, which allows any user to sell their old device on the marketplace to be bought back by a refurbisher who fixes the product, puts it back on the marketplace, creating a circular economy. So being environmentally responsible is part of our DNA. We're very passionate about this responsibility. We were founded in 2014. We're operating in 17 countries, around 3 continents, with more on the way. And we're around 700 employees today. Today, our architecture still has a monolith. We're trying to get rid of the monolith. As with many companies, we have the pains of a monolith where we have too many developers coding in a single code base. We have a release train that dictates the frequency of release. But we're in the process of migrating to a service-oriented architecture. So we have 30 services outside of the monolith today, and more are on the way. And over the last few years, we've been experiencing year-on-year growth, double-digit growth in the organization and the product, in the business as well. We've doubled the number of engineers. We now have over 40 squads, and we continually have more and more squads, so there's a few too many to keep in mind. And today, the goal for us is to scale the organization, and we try to do this by shifting left, fostering squad autonomy, making it easy to do the right thing. We much prefer put our efforts in tooling rather than continuous evangelization about the best practices. And so our story relating to DevPortal starts late 2021. These are some of the problems we were having. We were witnessing as questions on Slack. Who owns the shipping service? Can the payment service talk to that service? Where can I find the open API specifications for the shipping service? Is it possible to use Erlang in the backend? Some other problems that we had were that service creation was very manual, error-prone. It took a lot of time. Everybody depended on our infrastructure squad, and it was becoming a bottleneck in the organization. The onboarding of developers was lengthy. So as you can see, there's challenges related to scaling the organization. And so meanwhile, a few of us discovered the CNCF incubating project called Backstage, which is led by Spotify. It is a platform for building developer portals. It has an active community, very active, very engaging, over 100 plugins. It's written in TypeScript with a highly extensible framework behind it. So it piqued our interest. And so, by the way, what is an internal developer portal? I asked this AI chatbot that everybody's been raging about, and it says that it's a web-based platform that is designed specifically for software engineers and teams in the organization, with the aim of making their lives more easy, with making them more productive, so by exposing tutorials, SDKs, libraries, etc. I think it was a bit too specific to mention software developers. I really think it extends beyond and it goes more to the engineering organization as a whole. Hopefully, I'll try to show that in the next few slides. And so these are the main features pushed forward by Backstage. The software catalog allows you to describe the components that you have in your stack, the APIs, the libraries, the users, to build relationships between them. And this seemed like it would help us with our problem relating to who owns that service, or where can I find this, or where can I find that. Software templates feature allows you to create new software. And this seemed like it would help us with our problems relating to service creation being too manual or too error-prone. A Kubernetes plugin, which builds a facade, allows the user to interact with the Kubernetes ecosystem, to view what is running, their workloads. It's in such a way, it's easier for developers who don't want to dabble with the command line, even though I still prefer the command line. And a rich plugins ecosystem, which allows you to integrate plugins that are found on the marketplace, but also, crucially, the ability to build your own plugins customized for your experience. So having seen these features, Backstage had piqued our interest, and we wanted to try to solve it for some of the problems that we had. Today, I'll be highlighting 3 main features that we implemented. The first 2, Central Hub and Service Bootstrap, aimed at solving the problems that I listed earlier in the slides. And the last one, the coupling scores, is a problem that manifested later, for which we built this feature and solution. I'll get to it as the slides progress. So for Central Hub, the goal was to have a single live view of our system, a place where users could discover and explore the technical stack, a place where you can find the components, the libraries, the APIs, the relationships between them, a place where we can search and filter for all of the services that are using this library or all of the services written in this language, a place where we can also work with our third parties, so pull the data from our third parties and expose it in a consistent way in our interface. And so the first step in doing so was to set up the Backstage software catalog. And this is how it works. Developers will write YAML files that describe their entities. Entities can be anything from components, APIs, libraries, users, groups, systems, domains. These files are stored in version control, and Backstage, or DevPortal, our tool, through Backstage, will pull these YAML files and build a catalog along with the relationships between these entities. This is what an entity description might look like. So this is a KCD. Conference, and most of you know Kubernetes. You might see the resemblance with Kubernetes here. So we have an API version, the kind, a metadata section with annotations. And crucially, at the bottom in the specification section, we have an owner that needs to be defined for every entity. And this solved our problem of defining ownership. Once you start populating the catalog and you have these YAML files provided, Backstage can pull this data and start to provide dynamic views of your system. So you can start to filter for what are the systems or the domains that are owned by the specific team, what are the components, the dependencies between them, who exposes to what API, and who consumes what API. And the next feature or the next part of the central hub, was to integrate plugins to further enrich our catalog. And so we found plugins for several of the third parties that we use internally, so Circle CI, GitHub, Kubernetes, Argo CD. And once integrated, developers can use annotations in their entities to make a link between the software entity and the project on the third party. And this makes it so that it is possible to pull the data from that third party and show it through the interface in a single place where you can find everything related to your stack. So this is what it starts to look like. For the shipping service that we have internally, we can see Kubernetes workloads, their states. We can pull data about GitHub pull requests. We could pull data relating to quality, so Sonar Cloud, Sentry, all of your third parties. And the third part of the central hub feature was to integrate the tech radar. And our purpose for or our goal with the tech radar was to clearly communicate our technology choices to our engineers, to our developers. So the languages, the frameworks that we wanted to use, that we wanted to continue using, the things that we were evaluating, and the things that we wanted to hold off using. And that's it for the central hub. We moved to this service bootstrap feature. And so what was the motivation behind this one? Service creation pipelines were, the process of creating services was error-prone, it was manual, it was taking a lot of time. Developers depended on the infrastructure squad and the IT squads. There was a lot of back and forth and a lot of noise in the organization, and it was starting to annoy a lot of people. The time between a request for a service being created and the time it was delivered in production along with all of its infrastructure was on the order of days. And this is when it worked fine. When it didn't, it was on the order of weeks. And with our move to a service-oriented architecture, we definitely could not afford these kinds of delays. So something needed to be done. And we defined what our target experience would be. We wanted a fully self-service platform where developers would be autonomous on going on the UI, filling in the form about the details of their service, so the name, the description, who the owner is, the domain, but also their technology choices. What was the programming language, what was the framework they wanted, and the different capabilities. And then we knew that DevPortal needed to handle the magic. At this point, we hadn't started the project. We just were setting targets, and we didn't know how it would do it. We just wanted it to automate the process and remove the toil. And we targeted a creation time of less than an hour. It seems still high, and it is, and we thought that we could still go lower. But having come from a place where we were on the order of days and weeks, we thought that this would be a great improvement already and a good first milestone. So when we dig in a little bit more into what constitutes a service in back market, we can list a version control repository with a branch protection, custom configuration on the CI, on the CD. We need a container registry. We need a secret store. And we need the base code that is created once a service is bootstrapped, so the common code that is used across back market. So clearly, there's several things that we needed to handle. And so how did we do it? DevPortal is the orchestrator. It relies on several other features to do their specific jobs. So the Backstage software templates allows users to define what the input is, the Backstage software templates allows us to define what the user input is going to look like. So what are the fields that the user needs to fill in on the interface, the name, the description, etc. And then we define the workflow, so the list of steps that will be executed sequentially to get to our target creation. And then we delegated to specific tools that we have internally to do their jobs. So we already use Terraform, we already use GitHub, GitOps, and we wanted to continue using that. And we have a tool already called Chassis, which is a library that allows the creation of the base template of a service, the skeleton of a service. And we wanted to continue using that. So Backstage or the workflow orchestrates to the different tools, and wherever we didn't have a specific tool for the job, we could still rely on custom TypeScript actions, which are provided by Backstage, so we could implement Turing-complete code in TypeScript that allowed us to fill in the remaining gaps. So this is what, there's a lot of YAML here, but this is what This is what a template looks like. So as you can see at the top, for the properties, we can define what the user input is going to look like the name and description. And obviously here I've shortened it because it couldn't all fit here. And then we define the list of steps that will be executed sequentially. Each step is backed by an action, which is a TypeScript function, Turing complete. And so we could implement anything that we needed. What is important here actually is that every step be idempotent, because some of these steps might and will fail at some point, and when they do, you will want to restart the pipeline and still get to the end stage, to the same result. So it's important that every one of these steps be rerunnable and get to the same state. Idempotency is crucial here. And end-to-end, this is what the user flow started to look like. So the user comes to the interface, they submit a form with the details about their service. DevPortal will create a pull request on our infrastructure as code repository. We have continuous delivery pipelines that will be run, deploy in production, or in pre-production just to start. And then we run chassis to create the base template to push the code, the base code for our service. And with that, I'll move to the third feature, which is the coupling scores. And to explain what I mean by this, I'll start off with a small backstory. So as you recall, we have a monolith. We're trying to get rid of it. And the problem that we have with the monolith is that we have several modules in there which share data, which communicate via anti-patterns, making them very coupled and hard to extract individually. And so we wanted to quantify the state of coupling that we have in the monolith, and we designed, independently from DevPortal, a component called the module crawler, which statically analyzes the monolith and generates what we call coupling scores, which are metrics characterizing the state of coupling between the different modules that we have. It generates a report, it puts the coupling scores in the report, pushes the report to an S3 bucket, and the report in the S3 bucket is available for users and ideally management to start to see the problems that we have so that we can focus on the real bottlenecks. The problem we had with this was that we didn't really get the traction that we wanted. The JSON reports were not as accessible as we would have liked. Simply, they needed a command line to be pulled from S3. They were JSON reports, so it's one of the more readable formats, but it's not the ultimate format for reading a report. And also, crucially, the reports contain data just about the day of the day's coupling scores, but they didn't show trends over time. So all in all, management didn't pull the results. Developers maybe saw them once, but it didn't really get the traction in the organization that we were looking for. And so one of these times where we were generating a report manually to try to show management the trends that we were having, to highlight the problems that we were having, we wondered, can we use DevPortal to automate this process? DevPortal would sit between the user and the S3 bucket and would pull the data from the S3 bucket, exposing it in the right way for the user. And this is what we did. We designed this architecture comprising of two plugins, a backend plugin, a front-end plugin, and the backend one, its job is to regularly pull the S3 bucket, pre-process the reports that it found, insert them into the database, and simply expose them via an API. And the front-end plugin would plug into the backend via the API, and it was in charge of visualizing the reports that we had. So it contained components like graphs, pie charts, tables. And then the user will obviously interact with the front end. Initially, we were quite intimidated with this process of implementing several components or several plugins, but honestly, all in all, it took 2 to 3 weeks and was fairly straightforward. So I could say that the plugin ecosystem is quite well done. This is what it started to look like. So the homepage for our coupling scores, where we can see the score evolution over time. We also had pie charts showing the coupling scores per module that we had. We could have trends over time, so year over year, or month over month, or week over week, how the coupling scores were progressing. On the right-hand side, we have the module page, so it's similar information, but focused on a specific module. So the owners of this module could go and see the state of their coupling in that application. We had also a progress table which listed the different modules that we had and how they were trending week over week or month over month. And we could also dive into the level of database relationships, so the one-to-many, many-to-many relationships between tables that we had, the ones that we wanted and the ones that we needed to break, highlighted in red. So developers could see what needed to be focused on. And so all in all, we got very positives for this, very positive results for this. Management became very aware of the problems that we had. Engineering managers and their squads became incentivized and responsible for their coupling scores on improving them. And developers could find the hotspots in the monolith and try to address them as well. So this was an example where we were able to successfully drive change in the organization through DevPortal. And that was the point from the start. And with this, I'll move to the section challenges and the lessons that we had. And the first one was getting buy-in for the project. It was not very easy to convince leadership of DevPortal and the initiative. This is because several of the advantages that it provides are much less tangible and direct than perhaps some competing projects that you may have. So if we take, for example, an initiative promising to reduce infrastructure costs by X%, with DevPortal promising to provide a catalog and a central hub where we can explore our entire stack, one of these projects provides clear, quantifiable data that managers like to work with, whereas the other one is much less abstract and is harder to argue for. My 2 cents on this, my recommendation is not a silver bullet, but you have to do your due diligence. So run a POC, identify the problems you're trying to solve, list the advantages, and find a sponsor, ideally somebody who is in the room where the decisions are being made, and they can push for the initiative. If it may not be pushed for at the time, it's okay, because it may not be the right time for your organization as well. So it all depends. And the second one was tidying up the platform. DevPortal will peek under your platform covers. What do I mean by this? Fundamentally, DevPortal sits between the user and the platform, abstracting the platform away, exposing the features. So this means that complexity that you may have in the platform will manifest in complexity in DevPortal, because in trying to abstract it away, you'll have to build business logic in DevPortal. And the more complex the platform, the more you'll have to build in DevPortal. And inconsistencies that you have in the platform related to naming or behavior of the modules or permission setting will at some point propagate upwards to the user unless you take care of them in DevPortal. And sometimes features will simply not be possible unless you rework the platform. And there, what you need to do is go down a layer, focus on the platform, rework things, provide clear APIs and interfaces, and make this possible. And we witnessed this firsthand. We had to rework our RBAC system. And to illustrate what the problem that we had, consider a developer in one of our buyback squads. These are some of the groups that they had on our third parties. So on Okta, they had deployment buyback and buyback different casing. And 2 groups on Okta, one on GitHub, written differently, obviously, and on Sentry. But even worse, the memberships between those groups were not consistent. So we didn't know which of these groups to show on DevPortal, which one of them would be the source of truth. If the user were to come to the interface and try to create a service, and we needed to know their groups on the different third parties to bootstrap the infrastructure, how can we guess what their groups are going to be? Should we ask them for the list of groups on the user interface? Surely not. Surely we wouldn't ask them for 6 or 7 groups. So we had to rework the system. We went down to the platform and we reworked our groups system. We defined a common naming structure, which was department type name. So a developer in the buyback squad would be in the group BOT squad buyback, where BOT is the name of the technology department. And we used SCIM underneath, identity management synchronization protocol that would synchronize the different groups or synchronize the different members between these groups. So by the end of this, we had a single consistent name of a group for a user, a group for representing the team, and the memberships were consistent between the third parties, we could predictably use it in our interfaces. And with that, I'll get to the few lessons that we learned along the way. The first one is DevPortal is not a project. It is not a one-time initiative. It needs to evolve with the platform. Service creation pipelines, for example, that you put in place can and will grow stale unless they are continually used and tested. Changes that you have in the platform, for example, the addition of Kubernetes clusters, will require configuration in DevPortal to re-pull this data. So changes that happen in the platform will require changes in DevPortal, and you cannot just set DevPortal once and have it run forever. The second one is that it is crucial to adopt a product mindset to DevPortal. Apologies. It's tempting. It's tempting to, when in platform, to think, we don't need the product and we don't need to work with product managers. But this was clearly a product for us where we needed the product manager to help us quantify what was the most important to deliver to our users. So to collect the needs, to prioritize the roadmap, to collect the NPS. And we learned this the hard way. The third one was that adoption can be slow at first. Don't get discouraged. This is normal because you haven't provided enough features in DevPortal initially to provide this value for users. So just continually focus on adding value, and the users will follow. And this brings me to the next point, which is it is crucial that DevPortal be reliable, because the reliability will dictate the user trust, which will dictate the user adoption. And so by all means, avoid broken pages or broken links. Avoid integrating too many plugins too quickly without really mastering the plugins and understanding how they work. Word of mouth is very important. So developers will talk to one another, and this is what will dictate your adoption. So focus on quality and test, test, test. And with that, I thank you. Oui, pourquoi pas, ouais.
Donc on peut faire quelques questions. We can do some Q&A.
Si vous voulez en français aussi.
Bonjour, merci pour le talk. Donc première question, quelles étaient les premières features que les utilisateurs demandaient ou les utilisateurs commençaient à utiliser pour convaincre?
Merci. La première feature, c'était vraiment la création de services. Surtout parce que le catalogue, ça a pris du temps pour que ça se mette en place. En vrai, on peut mettre la feature en place, mais pour arriver à un stade où le catalogue est la source of truth et contient vraiment l'entièreté ou représente l'entièreté de votre système, ça prend du temps et ça demande de l'engagement des développeurs pour qu'ils décrivent eux-mêmes les entités qu'ils ont dans leur stack. Et ce qui est un peu tricky dans tout ça, c'est que on met en place cet outil qui est censé servir les développeurs, et si on commence à leur demander de faire des choses pour un outil qui ne leur sert à rien encore, pour le catalogue, c'est un peu tendu. En tout cas, on ne voulait pas créer la friction tout au début, donc on voulait fournir des features un peu gratuitement. Et donc, la création de services était un truc qu'on pouvait développer de manière autonome, et c'est ce qui était la première feature qu'on a poussée.
Merci, c'était très intéressant tout ce talk. Comment justement comment vous testez les plugins que vous développez en interne, et qu'est-ce que tu penses de l'expérience de développement de ces plugins Backstage en général?
Le plugin qu'on a développé, qui est le Coupling Scores, on a mis le classique des tests unitaires. Par contre, je dirais que ce n'est pas le système qui va marcher pour tous les plugins ou tout le système dans son entièreté. Par exemple, le service Bootstrap, la création de services, ce n'est pas un truc qui est, à mon avis, testable de manière unitaire. Et du coup, le process de testing, c'est plutôt end-to-end. Donc, ce qu'on va faire, et ce qu'on est en vrai en train de faire, parce qu'il n'est pas complètement déployé, mais c'est des tests end-to-end pour les pipelines de création. C'est-à-dire, tous les jours, on va faire tourner une pipeline qui crée un service et ensuite le détruit et qui va checker, enfin, avant de le détruire, qui va checker que tout a été bien créé dans l'écosystème, que ce soit GitHub, les projets Argo CD ou Circle CI. Donc, en vrai, c'est le classique d'un mix des deux. Il y a les tests unitaires et les tests end-to-end.
Merci pour la présentation. Je voulais savoir, vous avez parlé de la notion d'ownership qui avait été résolue par le DevPortal. Et qui a l'ownership du DevPortal?
Très très bonne question. Officiellement, il y a une équipe qui s'appelle DevXP, qui est honneur du composant, qui est DevPortal. Par contre, ce n'est pas une silver bullet parce que notre target, c'est d'intégrer de plus en plus d'expériences dans DevPortal, que ce soit des métriques de qualité ou pull les données des incidents qu'on a. Donc, et ces différents trucs qu'on souhaite pull sont ownés par différentes équipes. Donc en vrai, on a besoin que les différentes équipes viennent contribuer dans DevPortal. Donc idéalement, ça serait plusieurs contributeurs dans DevPortal, mais on a besoin d'une équipe qui soit les experts de DevPortal qui puissent dire comment faire les choses et setup l'environnement en soi. Mais pour répondre simplement, c'est une équipe qui s'appelle DevXP.
On m'a déjà donné un micro, du coup. Ma question, du coup, c'est justement lié à ça. Aujourd'hui, quelle est la taille de l'équipe DevXP et combien est-ce que vous avez d'utilisateurs justement du DevPortal aujourd'hui?
Bonne question. Aujourd'hui, l'équipe DevXP n'est pas juste honneur de DevPortal. Ils ont beaucoup de composants et ils sont en charge de la CI, de la CD. C'est une équipe qui a été formée assez récemment. Pardon. Et qui a un peu hérité DevPortal, qui au début était une initiative de 6 mois, qui a été donnée à une équipe qui s'est formée. Et en vrai, ils n'ont pas eu la bande passante de tout mettre dedans. Et ça rejoint un peu mon point qui est DevPortal n'est pas juste une initiative que tu peux mettre en place ou un projet one time, parce que tu le fais one time, ça va stale et tu ne vas pas avoir la user adoption. Et ça rejoint mon deuxième point qui était il faut avoir adopté une product mindset là-dessus, parce que cette équipe spécifiquement n'a pas un product manager. Et on remarque que les trucs qu'un product manager ferait, comme mesurer le NPS ou l'adoption rate ou le nombre d'utilisateurs, ne sont pas aujourd'hui suivis de manière très très proche. Donc vraiment, ce n'est pas un truc que tu fais one time. Idéalement, il faut qu'il y ait une équipe bien honnête du sujet.
Merci. Sur une autre dimension, la documentation des API, les microservices, est-ce que vous avez commencé à avoir des adopteurs, sachant que les freins naturels, il y a déjà une documentation quelque part, voire plusieurs plateformes, et quelle est la friction que vous allez rencontrer ou les challenges? Merci.
Oui. Aujourd'hui, à Back Market, on a déjà un autre outil pour la documentation des API, donc les OpenAPI Spec, mais celui-là, on pense que ça ne fait pas le taf, et en vrai, ça aurait du sens de le mettre dans DevPortal, et d'ailleurs, ça nous coûtera moins d'argent aussi. L'autre sujet qui est la documentation générale qu'on utilise au sein de la boîte, c'est en vrai de vrai, c'est un sujet assez tricky parce que justement, on a déjà la source of truth là-bas. Si on commence à ouvrir la porte de documentation dans DevPortal, il y aura 2 sources of truth. Et on a commencé à avoir ces discussions-là et ça a paru tendu et la plus-value était questionnable en ce moment de mettre tout dans DevPortal. On avait d'autres trucs à tacler et donc pour le moment, le sujet est poussé de côté.
Merci beaucoup. En tout cas, si vous avez d'autres questions pour Samy, n'hésitez pas à aller
Je
venir
serai
le voir,
là toute la journée.
que ce soit maintenant, toute la journée. Je dois absolument vous rappeler au cas où, si jamais vous n'avez pas encore votre badge, allez le chercher pour manger, sinon on ne vous donnera pas à manger. Voilà. Eh bien, je vous souhaite à tous et à toutes un bon appétit et encore merci.
Merci.